Nintendo announced the sequel of their greatest console yet, the Nintendo Switch 2, and to measure the significance of this upgrade, I am putting it against the Asus ROG Ally 7, Steam Deck, and the Lenovo Legion Go. Will this truly be 2025's best console? Let's find out. I feel like the best way to start this video is to talk about the display and screen size. The NS2 has a much larger 7.9-inch screen with a 1080p display, a much needed upgrade from the first Nintendo Switch's 720p display, and now the Nintendo Switch 2 supports 120 frames per second. Now when we look at the Steam Deck's display, it's equivalent to the previous version of the Nintendo Switch, a 720p 60fps display, and both are around 7 inches. The ROG Ally 7 on the other hand has a 1080p 120Hz display, 7-inch touch panel, and a wide color gamut that supports full sRGB coverage. The Lenovo Legion Go utilizes an 8.8-inch QHD display with a 144Hz refresh rate and 10-point touchscreen with Gorilla Glass. Despite the Steam Deck having the brightest display, the Legion Go is obviously the best choice. The Nintendo Switch 2 has between 2 to 6.5 hours of battery life, in comparison to the ROG Ally's 40 watt-hours of max use, a maximum of 6.5 hours, and around 2 hours of heavy gaming. Steam claims that their console can last between 2 to 8 hours or 3 to 12 depending on the model, and it also depends on the gaming content. For the Legion Go, you'll probably have a much longer gaming session because of its higher battery capacity than the Steam Deck. Taking a look at overall performance and processing power, the first Nintendo Switch uses a custom Tegra processor from Nvidia. When looking at single core and multi-core performance scores, yeah, it doesn't even compare to the Steam Deck. So it's definitely not equipped to face off with the ROG Ally 7 or Lenovo Legion Go in terms of raw processing and performance. However, a lot of tweaking has been done with the Nintendo Switch 2, and I believe things are about to take a drastic turn. In a blog post from Nvidia, it's been revealed that the Nintendo Switch 2 will use Nvidia's AI-powered DLSS technology, meaning it will finally have ray tracing capabilities, Nvidia G-Sync, high-performance upscaling, and now 4K gaming in TV mode. If I had to take a guess, single-core performance on the NS2 may double at a minimum, and GPU performance is estimated to increase by 10 times, as stated by Nvidia. The Nintendo Switch 2 supports HDR. Its TV dock actually has a built-in fan to cool down the Nintendo Switch while it's connected to the TV or another device, and now it supports 256 gigs of RAM instead of just 64. So that's more games, more data, so on and so forth. Plus, it has two 3.5mm USB ports, one on the top and one on the bottom. Don't get me wrong, this is a big upgrade from the first Nintendo Switch. You have doubled the resolution, 4K and HDR support on TV mode, RT cores and tensor cores dedicated to higher graphics performance and resolution, but in the end, will it outperform the likes of the Steam Deck? Yes and no. Handheld performance will likely be worse than the Steam Deck, but when docked, it'll have way better lighting and resolution on top of that additional fan in the dock, accelerating its overall performance. Now, will it be better than the ROG Ally 7 or Legion Go? Heck no. And keep in mind, those devices utilize a PC-based architecture with some serious processors, so I don't think the NS2 will really come close in performance. But hey, we'll have to wait until the benchmarks come out at least. And if we want to talk about who has the best performance out of all of them, between the ROG Ally 7 and the Lenovo Legion Go, it's very close. They both use the same chip, both offer 16 gigs of RAM, and they use the Windows 11 Home operating system. The Legion Go just offers more storage, so I guess that's one advantage it has over the Ally. So who has the better design? Is it the Nintendo Switch 2 or is it the other consoles? The Nintendo Switch 2 has gotten such a big refresh compared to the first Nintendo Switch. By design alone, it is far better. I'm not just talking about looks, but overall design functionality. I would say the Nintendo Switch 2 and Legion Go are on par design-wise. But first, I would like to cover what changes were made in comparison to the previous Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch 2 now has an angular kickstand on the back of the device, allowing you to adjust the screen at multiple angles and keep it sitting upright. There was a small latch/kickstand on the back of the first Nintendo Switch, but that was more or less for the micro SD card slot. You could technically refer to it as a kickstand, but not really. Plus, the screen is much larger, and so are the Joy-Cons and the buttons on the Joy-Cons. The inner SL and SR buttons are much larger for a more comfortable single Joy-Con experience. The inside of the Joy-Cons also have a magnet. Instead of the sliding mechanic you had on the last Nintendo Switch, you can now magnetically attach the Joy-Cons to the body of the NS2. That's also a pretty big deal because that means no more Joy-Con drift on the device. Nintendo has actually been working a lot with the Joy-Cons because now there's a built-in sensor that gives both left and right Joy-Cons mouse capabilities. They work and function similar to a computer mouse, just by sliding them on a flat surface. That actually makes first-person shooters and games like Minecraft so much easier to play with just this feature alone. And because of that, it's probably a good thing Nintendo finally decided to pull the trigger and give the NS2 a 120Hz display. Just like the Nintendo Switch, the Legion Go has various modes of gaming. They both have a classic handheld mode, FPS mode, which incorporates the same idea as using a Joy-Con for a mouse. Detachable mode is basically docking your Legion Go to the TV and using separate Joy-Cons for gaming, or you can just use the kickstand and play directly on the Legion Go. Battle Station mode is designed specifically for PC style gaming and the Legion glasses with an AR/VR experience using the Legion Go. Now, the original Nintendo Switch is definitely compatible with mouse and keyboard. However, almost none of the games on the Nintendo Switch will respond to keyboard or mouse input. Typically, if you want keyboard and mouse to work on your Nintendo Switch, you would probably have to get some third-party devices. Otherwise, the only thing you'll be using that keyboard for is text prompts. So the Legion Go is advantageous in that aspect. Being a handheld PC, it would be stupid if it didn't have a designated mode for native mouse and keyboard support for all games. However, with the Nintendo integrating mouse-like features into the NS2, with the NS2 being a much better upgraded version than the previous Nintendo Switch, it could be very likely that native mouse and keyboard integration will be a prominent feature of the Switch 2. And if that's true, that only leaves one question. Will native keyboard and mouse compatibility only be reserved for the newer games, or games that were released with the previous Nintendo Switch? Well, we'll just have to see, I guess. You know what? I'll give that to Nintendo. While I don't think its overall aesthetic is the best, I mean, that goes to the Ally 7. That doesn't even need an explanation why. I do think it's way more convenient and offers way more features and play styles, although the Switch and Legion Go are pretty much hand in hand. Now, I don't think comparing the system software of the Nintendo Switch 2 to the other consoles is fair. I mean, because Windows 11 is a completely different thing on its own, and Nintendo's operating system is specifically designed for the Nintendo Switch, so that just leaves one more thing: the price. Now, the Nintendo Switch 2 is not the cheapest console here. That goes to the Asus ROG Ally 7, but it's not the most expensive either, and I think the price is actually reasonable. It's only $50 more than the Asus ROG Ally 7, which is a single integrated unit. While the Nintendo Switch 2 has detachable Joy-Cons with mouse-like capabilities, these Joy-Cons can be combined with various accessories. You can get 4K gaming and HDR support with TV mode, and there's the added ray tracing and DLSS capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 2 for better frame generation and smooth 120Hz gameplay. The Legion Go, on the other hand, is $700. So on top of being able to do what the Switch can do, it has far better performance and a Windows operating system, and you have access to a variety of Steam games and other desktop games. The Steam Deck OLED with anti-glare glass and 90Hz refresh rate is close to that price point, but it's also a single integrated unit like the Ally 7. But I don't think it's as good, nor does it really compare with the Legion Go. However, I think each of these devices outperforms the Nintendo Switch 2 because of their more powerful hardware, so that's definitely something to consider. So where does that leave the Nintendo Switch? Is this truly 2025's best console as of right now? Yes and no. Yes, because, well, there are no other handheld game consoles out right now. And no, because I think it's better than the Steam Deck, not entirely from a performance aspect, but they're pretty close, pretty similar. However, the Nintendo Switch 2 has better portability, significantly larger internal storage, especially with a micro SD card, better gameplay when docking, and a ton of capabilities from its detachable Joy-Cons. The Asus ROG Ally 7 provides a larger gaming library, especially vast access to PC games. It has better hardware performance, but for a more curated portable console experience, a larger display of equal resolution, and 120Hz refresh rate, the Nintendo Switch 2 seems to be more ideal. The Nintendo Switch 2 beats out the ROG Ally 7 in terms of functionality and features, while the Ally 7 dominates raw performance. But the Ally's MSRP is cheaper than the NS2, so I think it beats out the Nintendo Switch 2. The Lenovo Legion Go wins by a landslide. I really don't think I have to explain why. On an ending note, the Nintendo Nintendo Switch 2 came really close, and hopefully this kind of settles a debate about which handheld is better and blah blah blah. Hopefully I helped you gain an idea of which console may be more fit for you. If you gained any insight and or enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please stay tuned for more videos, and I have a few things planned in mind. That's all for now, and I'll see you all in the next video.